All right, greetings and welcome to another edition of Favorite Funny. I'm your host, Carl Kozlowski, and I'm the winner of America's Funniest Reporter contest from the Laugh Factory. And I've had a long career of interviewing comedians about their lives and their favorite funny things. And so I finally thought, well, why not do a whole show about it? And so today's show, I'm very excited to have a guest who has been worked with Jay Leno extensively on the Jay Leno Show. He also has appeared on Conan. He has his own special on Dry Bar, and you can also find his special Take Note on Amazon Prime. I highly recommend him. Check out Dwayne Perkins, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Carl. Good to see you. How are you?
Good. How are you? Nice to see you.
Excellent. Yeah, it's good to
be
here.
I like your backdrop. I should steal that. Yeah.
So yes, I've been doing a bunch of Zoom shows. I use this for that, and it just happens to be still up. So it's fine. I like it.
Well, somebody made me paranoid this morning by saying that the picture behind me looks like it's off kilter, but it's actually hanging embedded in the wall, like unmovable. I don't know. So anyways, I guess.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't look straight, but maybe either the camera is tilted or that's the plan, right? Just to have it not be straight.
I don't know, man. Anyway, people just ignore the picture. Look at Dwayne. So, right. So you're in LA and dealing with life amid the pandemic and all that. So is anything going on for you comedically at this point? I mean, if not, it's obviously not your fault.
Right. No, it's amazing. Excuse me. It's amazing how quick people, certain people were able to adapt and adjust. So. Not me myself, but people around me. So I've been able to do a bunch of Zoom shows, all types of Zoom shows, probably average 2 or 3 a week.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yes, and so have you started hearing if clubs are going to be coming back anytime soon? Because I know the state's starting to reopen. So what do you think?
I think so. I did in-person shows within the last month and a half in Arizona and in Utah. So
really?
At least those 2 states are kind of doing the thing. And I think California is getting there. I think it's once we I think we had to get hit a threshold of vaccinations, and then I think we're off to the races after that.
And so what was it like doing the club shows in those states? Was everybody having to be masked, and did that make it weird or what?
What was actually weird was that people were not wearing a mask.
Oh, really?
That was weird. Yeah. And I mean, the capacity was less, but
sure.
But still, it felt like, they were sellout shows because of the reduced capacity. Yeah. And people were laughing. Fun times. It's a little bit tough because laughter is one of the things they say can transmit. And when you're on stage, everyone's laughing towards you. And it wasn't like the first row was empty. There were people pretty close. So I didn't love that part of it. But other than that, it was great.
Wow. Okay. So I guess I'll just get started with what we're trying to do here, looking at your life and everything. So, what was your earliest inkling towards doing comedy? Was were you like the class clown? Was there any particular moment that made you think, hey, I'm funny, I can do this?
It's a good question. I think for me, it's a combination of things. I think there's always the making people laugh aspect and what that does for you. And I remember I remember times being funny, not on purpose, and then people laughing, and it kind of like I got a little juice from that. Like one time I was in a bodega in Brooklyn, and I smiled, and the guy just happened to say, he said, "Oh, your teeth are so white." And I guess I was trying to have full disclosure. I was like 9 or 10, maybe 8, and I said, "Yeah, but my gums are black," and they all laughed, and they thought I was making a joke. I was just really being like, hey, don't celebrate my white teeth. You haven't seen my black gums. And and then I got that laugh, and I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. And then I remember like times holding court at school and at the lunch table, and making girls laugh, and just that reaction, and liking that feeling of holding court. But that was only half the, and then like being sarcastic, being able to like, challenge teachers, sometimes through comedy, sometimes just directly. So it's like you have to like the laughter, and I like that. Then you have to have a sort of inquisitive mind, and I'm mathematical kind. I was a computer science guy, so you question things, notice patterns. You have to have that. I think that's important. But thirdly, you have to like be a fan of comedy. So, growing up watching comedy, I would always watch it on TV, and I was a big fan of it. So I think those three things kind of all came together, and and resulted in me doing it.
Yeah, gotcha. So, excuse me, did you like how old were you when you first like actually went out and did a noticeable open mic or something,
Right.
that was a step towards doing this for real?
I was probably 22, 23, and just I was in college, maybe 21, but I was in college, and like after one summer, a guy I knew from school, when we came back, he was like, I started doing stand-up. He started doing stand-up over the summer. And I actually, even at that point, had made the connection that like you could just do stand-up. I liked it. I didn't know how that path, and so I think him saying that kind of motivated me. And then the next summer, all the way the next summer after school finished, I had a job opportunity in Seattle that I did not get. And I said to myself, if I don't get that job, I'm going to start stand-up. And so it all kind of lined up. I wrote that down. And then I was at this Black Business Expo. It was like a showcase of Black businesses. It's kind of like a 90s thing. I don't know if they still have it, but it was very much like, Black people supporting Black businesses kind of thing. So you went to sort of like, and there was a Black comedy club there. So, I walked over to them and I said, oh, how do you perform? And they gave me the rundown. They had like a workshop on a Wednesday, and then you could come and do what they call a New Jack segment on a Sunday. So I did that. It was a lot of fun. And then I did it sporadically. Then after school, I kind of like, tried to get up with regularity about 4 times a week.
Yeah. So like, what was like the first big break that you had? And was there any like funny experience like bombing along the way when you were just starting out? I think everybody's got some sort of horrific bombing episode.
Oh, many. I bombed my first time on stage. I did well, which that's usually the case. Your adrenaline just fuels you. I bombed my second time on stage, but also like the other comics were making fun of me. They were like doing things behind my back on stage that I wasn't aware of, which was kind of like, I think it was like their way of hazing me. It was fine. And I tell people you don't become a comic until you bomb. So that was kind of traumatic. But then after I realized that it didn't like scar me for life, then I was fine. I've had many bombs since then. The worst bomb I had was in Worcester, Massachusetts, because I had been doing it for like maybe 2 or 3 years, and I had to do 30 minutes of comedy, which was a lot for me back then. And I just did 30 minutes to just complete silence. It was not easy. But I did the time. I did the time though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and actually, my biggest break, I guess my first break, was doing Conan. And the crazy thing is, I was at the Chicago Comedy Festival, and I had 2 shows one night. And I had a show that I bombed. I bombed on the show. Like the audience was hostile. I just bombed. Left that show. Same night, did another show, and I did really well at that show. And the Conan people were at that second show, so it worked out.
That's great. So every comic's dream is to make it to a late night show, and you did it with Conan. So did it live up to what your expectations were, what your hopes were? Was there anything unusual about the experience?
It did. I think for me, it validated what I had been doing,
Yeah.
because when you're when you're doing comedy, sometimes you don't even know. Some people have like exact goals. Other people just want to be funny. Other people, want to be actors and writers. Some people writers. Some people want to be headline comics. So that's kind of the path I was on. But in the back of my mind, I always had the TV thing kind of working. And so when I say it validated what I was doing, I had them working somewhat clean. I'm not like squeaky clean, but I've been trying to work as clean as possible. And I think when that working clean translated into doing a late night set, it made me think, okay, that was worth it. Because sometimes when you're coming up, you find yourself in situations where the crowd is like drunk or hostile, and not working clean would be beneficial to you,
Sure.
But if you got to meet them halfway. And if you can stay the course and make your jokes still work, and your jokes inside and out, then it can translate to late night sets. I think what people don't realize about late night sets is that, like, anyone you see on Conan or now Jimmy Kimmel, any of these late night shows, they are a lot funnier if you saw them at a comedy club. So doing late night kind of sterilizes what you're doing a bit. So you have to be really funny just to be funny on TV. It's like if you saw an NBA player in an open gym, they wouldn't miss a shot, and then so you have to be so good at shooting that literally you hit 20 shots in a row, and that's normal. And what that translates to during the game is, if you can shoot 50%, that's great. If you can shoot high 40s, that's great. But in an open gym, you shoot 80%. And I think there's that same drop off when you do late night. I got bumped my first time on Conan, which was crazy. I mean, they were really apologetic. They sent me and my family out to eat in New York, brought me back 3 weeks later. But from that process, I stopped telling people when I'm going to have late night sets. So the second time I did it, I didn't want to tell anyone until I did it. So I've done many late night sets after that. And I typically tell people after I do the set, then I'll blast out an email. And everyone's like, how come you didn't tell me? And I'm like, I don't know. I think from that first time getting bumped, it made me feel that when I told people, I know this is crazy, but when I told everyone, I also told some people that weren't rooting for me. You know what I mean? So it kind of made me not share everything with everyone, because you just don't know who's rooting against you. You know what I mean? And when I did Conan, the thing that struck me is how close the band was. Like, it looks bigger on TV, obviously, and when you come out, you're doing a set, and it's just so unnatural compared to like a comedy club. So like, you're here on stage, you have this small window where you can move, and the band is literally like, I can reach out and touch the guy, and this was the old set in New York. I could reach out and touch the guy, the band leader, who I think it was Max at the time.
Yeah.
So that was weird, and the crowd is really far away from you, and in between you and the crowd are a bunch of cameras. So it's a completely unnatural thing that you have to try to make natural, and that's where the repetition comes in, the years and years, like just knowing the joke inside and out, being comfortable, and that translated to me doing Conan I've done Conan like maybe 6 times. And then I did the Tonight Show with Conan. I've done Ferguson, I think, twice. Now I've done Colbert once. So, the interesting thing is, as a comic, the late night set is great because it just stamps you as being sort of like, a professional, a bulletproof comic. But it doesn't always translate to like hour specials, because hour specials is where you have to like sort of like just let it go and just have fun. And the late night shows, those 5-minute chunks, you have to really, there's a discipline to them. Not everyone can do them,
Yeah. So then what would you say is the key to knowing when you have a special in you? Because it's probably not necessarily the second you hit an hour of material, because you really want it to be great. So, I mean, is it a matter of maybe to have a good special, a comic should have 90 minutes for every hour, or 2 hours for every hour, or what?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's going to vary from comic to comic. I mean, I would say, I would put a year on it, more than even time. I would just say 10 years, 10 years before we need to see you do an hour on TV. One, because will you be ready before 10 years? Even if you have an hour, you probably won't be ready. Two, what are you going to do after it? Say it really goes well. What about your next hour? You know what I mean? And I think saying I have an hour of material or 2 hours of material, it kind of doesn't tell the whole story. It's got to be like, I have an hour of material that blends well together, that fully represents me, and then another half hour to an hour that does that too. So it's not just the joke is funny. It's like the joke has got to be funny and flow within what you're trying to do. Now, people find ways to accelerate that. If you're really disciplined, it doesn't have to be 10 years. What I realized is I was doing so many late night spots that like I was like I've done enough late night spots where if I just did those all together, that would be an hour special. You know what I mean? So I think probably I could have done my hour special maybe 2 years before I did it, but I'm happy I did it when I did it. Because I think the word special is now sort of being lost in the specials. A special is not an hour of material. It's a special hour of material. It's like an hour of like, and I think, I'm really happy with my my Take Note special. Like now I had a Comedy Central special before that. That was a half hour. My hour special, Take Note, I'm really, really happy with it because it was a blend of like all my greatest hits, some of my greatest hits with my newer stuff that was super polished but newer, and I think it stands the test of time. And people have told me, people I don't even know they've told me I watched it more than once. I watched it 2 times. I watched it 3 times. And that's another thing. You want your special. I mean, comedy. So much of comedy is the element of surprise, but you also want it to have that thing where people will enjoy it more than once.
Yeah. And what about okay, so I would say probably their biggest career break, it would seem, would be getting to work with the Jay Leno Show for a while. Like, what did you specialize in for that, and what was that experience like?
That was a great experience. That was shout out to my home club in California, the Comedy Magic Club.
Oh yeah,
that's my first home club, and I'd say close second is the Laugh Factory in Hollywood. But they do a great thing. They do a great service. And I don't even know if they mean to, but they just have a bunch of headliners. Almost anytime you walk into that comedy club, because they're in LA, they have it's location. Some of the best headliners are there, and mixed with that, a lot of household names. So Jay Leno, pre-quarantine performs there every Sunday. And so there, I got to meet Jay Leno. I hosted one of his shows. I also got to meet George Carlin there, Richard Jimmy there,
wow,
Ray Romano there. So they bring people together. They bring generations of comics together. I met Gary Shandling there, and so yeah, Jay liked me, and then I pitched a bunch of ideas, and I was a correspondent on the show. And the idea that they liked, and we did a bunch of them, was called Great White Moments in Black History. So it was just like
what's an example?
Many examples. Now, some of them were earnest and funny. Some were just funny. Like I think like the first one I did was Ricki Lake. So the Great White Moment was when Ricki Lake first got her talk show in 1995. She started using the term "You go, girl," which caused Black people to stop saying it. Thanks, Ricki Lake. You know what I mean? It was. Yeah. I had one moment of the guy who created auto-tune. I thanked him for allowing marginally talented rappers to skyrocket to the top. So it was like all funny stuff. I thanked Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan, actually, people don't know this, but the George Foreman grill was offered to Hulk Hogan first.
Really?
Yeah. But he decided to go with the shake company that were doing like nutritional shakes. I guess that's more on brand for him. And then, so the joke was like, George Foreman went on to sell like millions of the grill, and Hulk Hogan's shake, shake thing.
Yeah.
with
Oh, I see what you're
blender.
saying. Yeah.
His blender sold like six. You know what I mean? So that was a
Yeah.
that was a great white moment in Black history because Hulk Hogan helped George Foreman by turning that down. You know.
Yeah, but a strange footnote to that is, look this up for the real story, people. It's amazing. Hulk Hogan years later made tens of millions of dollars, if I recall the amount. It was in the millions, suing an online entertainment news site called Gawker Media because they posted a sex tape that he didn't know had him in it, so he didn't know it was made. And then it got posted and he sued them and he wound up, getting set for life. So it made up for the shaker. But it's a wild story.
Exactly.
It brought down Gawker, a huge operation.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. And there might even be a Netflix special or series about that, I think, or it's definitely at least an episode of some, Netflix series on weird cases or whatever. But yeah, it's wild.
Right.
Yeah, so then I guess bouncing back to when you were a kid, one thing you told me I gave you a few questions beforehand. You were saying that that you remember being able to perform 2 different bodily functions in class. Now, I'm afraid to ask, what did that mean?
I think that was the embarrassing moment, was it not?
Embarrassing, yeah. Okay.
Well, I want to say it was 4th grade. What's crazy about my 4th grade teacher, I think her name was Miss Triano was her name, begin with a T. She might have been a Wiccan, looking back, because she was tall, pretty tall, and had just the longest black hair, deep black hair, and she was pale. But she was one of my favorite teachers. Like, she had us like tap dancing in the hallway. And the reason why I'm saying all of that, she was a great teacher, but at the same time, I just have a lot of memories of things that happened when she wasn't in class. You know what I mean? Like, meaning she was there, but she stepped out for a second. So I don't know why would a teacher step out with that much regularity, or maybe that's just how I'm remembering it. But I think one time she stepped out, and I don't know, I was nervous. I think my stomach now is ironclad. I go all over the world. I eat anything.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But growing up, I did not have an ironclad stomach. In fact, my nerves would get to me, And so one time in class, and I feel like I may have even had like a little bit of a skirmish or a fight with the kid beforehand, but through some event or my nerves or what I had at lunch, I just threw up in the class. I couldn't make it to the bathroom. I just threw up, and I'm really embarrassed. I mean, it's just like right there on the floor, just awful. And then right after I finished, I realized that I need to fart. And yeah, and I jump up to try to make it, and then I it's too late, and I fart. So those were the 2 body functions. I threw up and then I farted. And but
I hope the viewers at home aren't eating right now, but okay.
Right. It wasn't too bad. I mean, it was one of those things where, like, maybe that was preparation to become a comic, because it didn't scar me like it could have. You know what I mean? I bounced back really quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Now, I remember this is even grosser, but it's a similar story. There was a guy in my college who one night, I'll never forget this. It was in a dorm, and they have the big bathrooms with multiple stalls,
Right.
and some dude was in a stall, so sick from alcohol that he had to sit down and relieve himself that way. But he also dragged the trash can into the stall with him.
Wow.
And was heaving from the front also, and people saw that was happening, and they were just like amazed. And so the poor guy, everybody kept like turning the lights on or off on him, and the guy was just trapped in there, afraid to come out because he knew everybody would be looking, and of course he's embarrassed. Nobody knew who was actually in there. And the poor guy had to wait us out till like 3 a.m. before finally everybody gave up. He had to sit there for hours. Yeah, because he was terrified of the RA finding out and like coming after him,
Right. Oh, so, man, that's one of those moments I wonder if he drank again, because that's
I know. I think that is the definition of hitting bottom. If that isn't, I don't know what is.
right. You hope so. And he must have been hella dehydrated after all of that too.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah. So, so then I guess you gave me also a couple odd stories about things that happened on stage, that you actually ate honey once on stage. I can't imagine. I
Oh,
mean, that sounds like it would be very difficult to just eat straight honey. I mean, it's kind of like they say it's dangerous to eat cinnamon on its own. That people will do that off a spoon. There's been like these weird internet challenges, and people
right,
like
right.
start gagging. They're like, "What happened with the honey?"
Well, what happened was back then it's weird. I had such a odd commitment to comedy. And like I've performed sick before, and I usually do really well when I'm sick.
Did you throw
Actually,
up and fart?
no, no. Thankfully, I didn't do that.
Callback.
Even though that would have been funny, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was that was a Saturday, I believe, and I was living in Boston at the time, and so me and my friends, we thought it would be cool to go be extras in this movie. There's this movie where Damon Wayans plays a basketball player. It's really, and Dan Aykroyd kidnaps him.
Oh, that was terrible movie.
Yeah,
Celtic Pride.
Celtic
Yeah.
Pride. There you go. And
Yeah.
so I've never seen the movie actually, but they
It's
had a
bad.
scene in the Boston Garden, so we all went just to be there. And we're supposed to cheer, and that's when after that I learned, like, you don't really cheer, like, like, let the other people cheer. If they want to add cheering noises, they can go and get that in post. But I'm there helping out. I'm screaming, trying to be a good background person, and I ended up losing my voice. And I was getting sick anyway. I think I wasn't sleeping enough, and I had a show that night. So when I went to my show, by the time I got to the show, I had no voice, and the honey kind of coats your throat, so honey and lemon, and I had a tea, and then at the tea I finished, and so I literally did my whole set with the honey in my hand, and I would like take a teaspoon, coat my throat, be able to like talk for like a minute or two, and then take. So I was just like, I literally needed that to even be able to speak, and I just did my whole set eating honey, and I think it worked because people probably found it so interesting and peculiar that it almost became a shtick, but it wasn't a shtick. Like, I actually needed the honey to perform. Now looking back, I could have just been like, "Hey guys, I can't perform today," but I think when you're coming up, like, I came up with Gary Goldman, and me and Gary we were like just out, like, obsessed with getting on stage. So it didn't dawn on me that I could just get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think it was a paid gig too, though.
Wow. So then, and also you convinced somebody from the audience to come up and do stand-up as well, or what?
Yeah. I see that wasn't, I was there. I wasn't the main catalyst on that, but this comic named Jason Galern, one of my favorite comics. I mean, just hilarious, such a great writer. We were in Westwood. This is in California now, and this place called the Westwood Brewing Company. I think now it's like a place that serves shrimp in a bag now, like a Crab
Wonderful.
Shack, something, one of those kind of places. But they did comedy there. It was a great place to do comedy.
It was, yeah. I
perform.
remember there.
And this guy was heckling us, and he was heckling everyone mercilessly. And then Jason, right there, like in the middle of his set, said, "Well, if you think you're so funny, come up and do it." And the guy took the challenge, and he got on stage, and we heckled him mercilessly. Like, we I don't know if you can curse, but we heckled the shit out of this guy, and obviously he couldn't handle it. He had no jokes. He had no clue of what was involved. And the funniest thing is, Gary Goldman was actually there too, I believe, that night. This guy's name was like Harut, I think. Yeah, because actually he's the first Harut I ever met in my life. Then I met another Harut. I think it's maybe an Armenian name. So this guy's name was Harut, and we heckled him. It was like revenge. Like, for all the years that we've all been heckled, we got to like get this guy back because he took the bait and got on stage, And then Gary went up after the guy and said, like, from now on, your name is just Root, because there was no ha. And that was just a
Oh
great
my
moment.
God. That's a burn, man. That's great. That's awesome.
That was a sick burn, yeah. And so
Yeah.
that was fun. And we didn't like crush the guy. Like he got his comeuppings, but I don't think he like, went home and took his life or anything. It was just like, now you understand how hard this is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's get to some of your favorite things that make you laugh. As far as pop culturally, you're a big fan of David Sedaris. You said that you love Me Talk Pretty one day, and that is absolutely one of the all-time funniest books. Yeah,
It really is. And I've lived a really good life, and like I've read more as an adult than I did as a like a kid, or even in high school, even in college. And that's the reverse. Like most people, they have to read in high school and then they kind of stop reading. But I went the other way. And somehow, like in high school, I didn't have to read that much, or I could finesse it, But I was at an audition and this guy had that book, Me Talk Pretty, one day, and he suggested I read it. And I've never laughed out loud when reading something. It was like, it's really hysterical. There was a whole passage about, I guess, David Sedaris is gay, and he had a lisp, and
yeah,
the whole thing about him avoiding words that had an S in them, like it was just hysterical to me. It made me, I mean, and it gave me the impetus to start a blog myself. So I started a blog. I wrote it for many years, pretty steadily, and little funny anecdotes and essays, amusing musings is what I used to call them. And then I collected the best excerpts from my blogs over the years and put them into a book called Hot Chocolate for the Mind. So that was all inspired by David Sedaris.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, if you ever get a chance to go, he does tours around the world like every couple of years. Amazing performer, like reading his funniest stories out of new books. And he also tried to get books autographed by him, because he takes his time with people. He doesn't just scratch his name out. He'll ask you something about yourself, and he'll make a joke that fits you in every book.
Wow.
I've got them all signed because I've seen him several times. I interviewed him a couple times, and he's just incredibly thoughtful. Just puts a lot of effort into what he does, and that's why people love him so much too. So
that's so cool. And and I know you're a writer, and so it makes me kind of happy that, like, even though he's worldwide, world known, but you validating it makes me even like happier. And I think I'm like, there's 2 or 3 books of his now that I haven't read, so I need to catch up and read them. And more people know his sister; she's hysterical as well.
Amy.
I just love his story. I love the whole living in France thing. He's just a great storyteller.
My favorite autograph that he put in one of the books, I forget which one it was, but I had interviewed him in an alley, which sounds weird, but the thing was, there was a coffee shop that was set up around a couple blocks from Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena, and I was supposed to just get a few minutes with him, but he overrode what his own publicist had set up. And he was like, "No, have that guy meet me at the coffee shop a couple blocks away." And he gave me like 90 minutes. I was supposed to have 15 at the bookstore. And he told the coffee shop, "Hey, could you set up a table in the alley here behind there was like a little gate, so he wouldn't be, we wouldn't risk anybody coming up and seeing him and harassing us." But it was like 90 minutes one-on-one with David Sedaris in an alley. And if you want to find the interview, I believe, folks, it's you can Google David Sedaris, The Progressive, as I did for the Progressive magazine. But the thing was, later on, years later, I went and saw him in Long Beach, and he remembered me even before I even said anything. And I noticed he was remembering other people from prior meetings at events with them or whatever. Just has a real sharp mind for that. And he wrote in the book to Carl, "I loved our time in the alley." I mean, I
That's
guess I'm
pretty
from
dope.
David Sedaris, that really makes the book, I'll make sure my parents never saw that, but anyway.
That's
Um,
great. That reminds me of this. One of my favorite sketches of all time on SNL was Paul Simon.
oh
There's this
yeah,
whole sketch where like he's walking down the street and people come up to him and he remembers everyone. Like if you were at a concert and you sat in the fifth row, you know what I mean? Like he's just remembering all these odd people. And then Art Garfunkel walks up and he's like, I'm sorry, I don't remember you at all. Who are you? He's like, Garfunkel? We were in a group called Simon and Garfunkel. I just thought that's so funny to me.
well, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think what's also the craziest example of a memory mind like that I've ever encountered was Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of Los Angeles. I interviewed in 2005 or 6. I was sent by LA's City Beat newspaper to go be one of their team covering. There was like 1 million man or 500,000 man march of Latino immigrant workers,
Right.
marching for their rights across downtown LA. And so I go to this event and I see the mayor, and I'm wearing in weekly newspaper world, we could be very casual. And I was wearing a t-shirt that said Comedy Time on it. It was like a logo from a show I did. And so I go up to the mayor, I interview him, completely serious about the news, not discussing comedy at all, I don't think. And then, or maybe he asked me, he goes, what's that about? And I said, oh, I do stand up also. And that's all I said. And then like 2 years later, I'm downtown at some LA Fashion Awards, and Mayor Villaraigosa comes up on the red carpet, and I'm there with a date, and I'm dressed in a suit, nowhere near looking as slobby and rundown as I was wearing a Comedy Time t-shirt. But 2 years later, he must have met tens of thousands of people all over the world. And he
Oh yeah.
goes, hey, what's going, Comedy Time? And he just keeps walking.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
That's a gift.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton could do that too, I've heard. That Bill Clinton's just like never forgets a face.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
yeah. So anyway, your favorite funny movie or movies, you mentioned Coming to America and Trading Places. And before we get into what makes those great, I'm going to put you on the damn spot and just ask, did you see the sequel to Coming to America? And is there any way on earth you actually like that thing? I thought it was terrible.
Okay. I'm glad you asked me. I think a lot of people, it's a very polarizing question. I'm not just, saying this because I don't, I know Arsenio a little. I don't know Eddie at all, but I really did like it. And I think I think if you're looking at it like a sequel, then you're looking at it through the wrong lens. It's a reunion. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like an hour and a half of, even though it's not, but the feeling is like an hour and a half of lost footage, kind of, you know what I mean? And
I wish it was lost. Sorry.
I know a lot of people don't like it. I really dug it. And I think because I don't know, it's like Rocky 4 is maybe not as good as Rocky 3, but it's, it's still Rocky, And so I think Tracy Morgan was hilarious. I think Leslie was really great.
Oh, he was
I think
good.
Wesley Snipes was great. I think, the story is, and that's another thing, the story is unbelievable. But I think that's on purpose. And I think it was very tongue in cheek, very wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so if you give them a pass on that, then I think you're good. But some people didn't give them that pass.
Yeah. Well, so then what do you love about the original and about Trading Places? Because those are two of your all-time favorites.
You know what's so crazy is that I literally forgot these answers. So I forgot that I told you that, right?
Okay.
And just, I think it was yesterday, I was talking to one of my homies and we were talking about these two movies. And we would literally, because he said, he goes, I go back and forth as to which is my favorite. And I do too. I think I'd give Trading Places the slight edge.
Sure.
I just think it's sort of like when I'm for comedy, and I've written a bunch of features too I've only made one feature, which was like a comedy thriller, but more of a thriller. It's like you need these funny set pieces, and you need this, enjoyable story. And I think a lot of comedies in the last like 20 years have said, you know what, forget the story. We're just going to just load it up with funny set pieces, and people will forgive us for not having a story,
Yeah.
And I think those two movies have both. And I think it's Eddie Murphy at his height, talking about Trading Places and Coming to America. And the chemistry works. And those two movies are the most quotable for me. Like if you were born, like anyone over 30, you can quote things from those two movies and they get it,
Yeah.
Like, and I think I don't know, it's just sort of like these are like American treasures in a sense. And the other thing they have, which I love, is that you can enjoy the whole movie, like kind of like Pulp Fiction. You can enjoy the whole movie, but you can also watch any scene out of order and it still works and it's still really funny.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good point. So then your favorite TV show, you said is Seinfeld, but you also love Psych and Martin. So what do you want to say about any of those?
Well, Psych, I have this memory that I could be off. I felt like I auditioned for Psych and I didn't get it. And I think the guy who got it really was worthy. And I feel like
Julie Hill.
Yeah, I think he's amazing. And I think what happens is I think it was a time, maybe I did not audition for it, but I felt like I read it and I loved it, but then I wasn't quite ready for the audition, Not saying I would have got it, but what I love about Psych is I used to have a roommate who was a comedian named Dan Smith. And what's Sean's real name? Is it the white guy in Psych?
The actor's name is James Rode. I don't know.
James, right? Yeah, him. My roommate, my old roommate Dan Smith, who's a comic, a very funny comic. They actually look alike. So, and so when I look at, and I don't look like Drule or whatever, but enough. And so their chemistry was so reminded me of the chemistry I had with my old roommate that like it almost felt like someone watched us, and you know what I mean. And so I think I relate to it on that level. I think they had great chemistry. I think it was super well written. It's kind of like Scooby-Doo without the dog, And I love the whole Santa Barbara angle. But definitely Seinfeld is my favorite show ever. Sitcom ever. I think it's I think Seinfeld was so good it almost broke the sitcom model, You had Friends at the same time, and Friends was really funny, more traditional but really funny. And I think sitcoms kind of lost their way for a little bit. They were funny sitcoms, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I just think, it's like Eminem kind of broke rap, Jay-Z broke rap. Like these guys are so good that there's no place to go afterward but kind of down a little bit, And I think Seinfeld did that. And I think it's amazing that they let them do it. It's amazing that it was on the air. It had some elements that are very traditional, but also I just think talk about quotable, iconic moments we all remember, hysterical cast. And I watch Curb sometimes, but I've never been as into Curb as everyone else, because I think Curb is Seinfeld with some of the humanity taken out. And Seinfeld, we think these people are mean and they're like, they don't care about anyone, but they don't live in a real world. And the people they're mean to kind of deserve it, And whereas in Curb, you feel like he's being mean to people that don't deserve it, And I think Jason Alexander is charming and lovable, and that charm overcomes his neuroses. Whereas Larry David, he's not as likable as Jason Alexander. So I think Seinfeld is just great. I think it tapped into human nature too. Like the big salad episode. You know, like if you or me go somewhere and you pay for a big salad, and we get somewhere and we have a third friend, and I give that friend the salad, and I don't say that and I don't mention that you bought it. You know what I mean? Like, and then when I do mention it, if you were to call, you know, if you mention it, if I call you petty, it's like, no, you know, I think there was just so many moments where you could relate to Seinfeld, you could relate to George, you could relate to, you know, Elaine. So it was a really great show. And I even liked the final episode.
Oh, that was terrible. I mean, but I remember going to, I was in Chicago at the time, and I was so into it, and there was so much hype. There were special issues of Entertainment Weekly and Rolling Stone and everything about Seinfeld's leaving. There was like a special panel discussion hosted by Entertainment Weekly with like big TV writers talking about it. And then you go to the bar. I went to a bar to watch this with a crowd, and everybody, it was like watching your team completely get stomped at the Super Bowl. Everybody was like completely going, what the hell is this? It was the worst.
But that's the same thing as Coming to America. It was a wrap up. It wasn't like, it was just an excuse for them to bring every character who had ever been on the show. And also to sort of like, you know, hit the point home once again that these characters weren't meant to grow. They were kind of stuck in this loop.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was a little weird. I'll give you that. But I've seen it, several times since then. And it doesn't bother me. And I met the Soup Nazi once too, by the way.
Oh, so did I. I went in New York and I ordered from him, and he really was a rude bastard.
He was actually cool when I met him. I met him on this game show.
Oh, really? No, he was really like, move along, but maybe he might have been playing into it. I don't know.
Yeah, but his name is Larry Thomas.
Yeah. So, you're talking about the actor. I met the real life Nazi guy.
Oh, no, I meant the actor. Yeah,
there's a real guy in New York, and he's really awful. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right.
Yeah. But also, let's see. I guess the last thing I want to ask you about is your favorite comedian of all time was George Carlin, and you said you got to meet him and work with him.
Yeah, a few times at the Comedy Magic Club. He was great. Like we didn't we didn't bond or prick each other's fingers and exchange blood or anything, but he was really, really great. It was good to see his process and how he worked. And I think he's probably influenced me the most, just in terms of process. You know what I mean?
And in what way? Like what do you mean by the process aspect?
Well, I should say process and content. I think I'm not the wordsmith that he was, even though I think I should make the time to be, because I think I love that he was so focused on language and understanding its power and being as precise as possible. As comics, us as comics and writers, we have a little bit of poetic license to exaggerate, but at the end of the day, it's accuracy and calling things out. That's really where the funniness comes from and the growth. And I think when I looked at Carlin, people remember him for his staple bits, for a place for your stuff, football versus baseball, and he always went on and on about class, and he was big on exposing things like that. But he also did fart jokes, and I think that's what I loved about him. And I think that's what gets lost, is that like some comics will paint themselves in a like Bill Hicks was great, and a lot of younger comics since Bill Hicks, there's been a lot of people under his umbrella, a lot of Bill Hicks disciples, and I think sometimes they forget that, like, while you're raging against the machine, throw a fart joke in there every now and then. And I think I got that from Carlin, and I think if you want the people to sort of like laugh at the stuff that's biting, you also have to give them stuff that they can just laugh at and don't apologize for it. You get to go back and forth.
Kind of like throwing up and farting at the same time.
Right.
Right. But, Anyways, hey, I gotta let you go. I want to say thank you. Where can people find more about you? Do you have a website?
Oh, sure. It's DwaynePerkins.com. And I'm going to start updating it now because live shows are happening. I have
Yeah.
shows this weekend in Ventura at the Harbor
Oh,
Comedy
cool.
Club,
That's a
Ventura,
great place.
California. So DwaynePerkins.com. I'm Dwayne Perkins on Instagram. And yeah, my books, Hot Chocolate for the Mind and Zombie Run, which is a novel. They're both on Amazon.
Oh, cool. All right, folks, and make sure you come back and check out more episodes of Favorite Funny, and also make sure you subscribe us and like us, give us a good review. And until next time, I'm Carl Kozlowski. This has been Dwayne Perkins, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.